OMIC R&D was created on the idea that if you work together on applied manufacturing research, you'll get a much better result. And so it brings the subject matter experts together with the researchers from our 3 universities, and we overcome the pain points that industry has identified. Industry have a tremendous need for new employees coming in just to fill the vacancies that they have now, let alone those that are necessary for them to grow and expand. There really is no good system in place for those who are coming through the high school system to get the skills that they need to go directly into manufacturing. They may be somebody who is tactile or kinesthetic, and they like to use their hands. They like to think concretely about things. If you can find a path for them that says what you have is valuable, then what you're doing is you're generating this positivity that allows them to hold their head up high, and when they leave, it's purposeful. They get to go into manufacturing. OMIC right now is providing trainings, much of which is provided by our members who can bring their subject matter expertise and teach others. They're giving students the skills that industry needs for them to get a good job and to get those people working on the manufacturing floor. Then in turn contribute to the community, because then they frequent the local restaurant, the local retail stores. They also add to the tax base of the community. And all of those are force multipliers that over time will allow the economy to grow. It's tremendous the impact that doing manufacturing workforce development training right will result.
I gotta tell you, having some walk-up music is amazing. So thanks to Greater Kind again for being here. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it. By the way, speaking of the arts, if you get a chance to take in the Van Gogh exhibit that's here at the Convention Center, I would highly recommend it. It is one of the most amazing exhibits that I've ever been to, and it will fulfill you in the way that we talked about earlier. So enjoy that here over the holidays if you get a chance to do that. Okay, to kick off the next part of our day, we have Ben Cannon, Executive Director of the Higher Education Coordinating Commission. Ben will discuss strategies to create more equitable access to higher education and training. In his position, Cannon oversees state funding allocations, policy setting, and coordination for Oregon's higher education system, including community colleges and public universities. Cannon is a former teacher, state representative, and education policy advisor to the governor, and also a Rhodes Scholar. Elected 3 times to the Oregon House of Representatives, he chaired the House committees with jurisdiction over environment, energy, and water policy. Ben, welcome. Thank you.
Well, it's great to be back at the Business Summit after 2 very long years. For higher education in Oregon, meeting the COVID moment has meant rapidly re-engineering instructional delivery, including through a whole lot of distance education. And for our college and university campuses, it's meant keeping highly populated communities safe for students who learn and eat and recreate together. Our colleges and universities and training partners have been through a lot since March 2020. Some of their leadership is in the room today, and they deserve our appreciation and our applause for their success at maintaining educational opportunity while keeping students safe. For Oregon's Higher Education Coordinating Commission and its partners, meeting the COVID moment has meant also stepping back and examining the profound changes underway in our economy and our society, and asking, what must we do differently in order to contribute to an equitable recovery and a more prosperous, more just Oregon? Because our commission has concluded that if we emerge from the pandemic with essentially the same higher education and workforce systems that we had going in, we will continue to produce the same inequitable outcomes that so frustrate employers and educators and other Oregonians today. So what needs to change? We start with a vision of our destination. The HEC envisions a future in which all Oregonians, and especially those whom our systems have underserved and marginalized, benefit from the transformational power of high-quality post-secondary education and training. It's a vision that's reflected in statutory goals that Oregon's legislature has set and that we measure our progress against. Specifically, the HEC is charged by law with developing budgets and policies and programs that ensure that by the year 2025, 40% of our recent high school graduates will have completed a 4-year degree, an additional 40% a 2-year degree or short-term certificate, and the remaining 20% complete high school. Additionally, since 2019, we've had a goal for adult educational attainment, that by the year 2030, we will award 300,000 credentials to older Oregonians, including early and mid-career workers who seek education and training in order to support their career objectives. These ambitious but attainable goals were the product of state leaders, including architects of prior Oregon business plans, who evaluated the type of economy our state will need in order to prosper in the decades to come. And the adult educational attainment goal in particular was the product of asking labor economists and employers what jobs would need to be filled between now and 2030 and what skills and credentials those jobs would require. So how are we doing? Well, overall, we've actually made a fair amount of progress with respect to our goal for young adults. As you can see on the slide, about 35% of young adults in Oregon today earn a bachelor's or advanced degree. An additional 19% have an associate's degree or other undergraduate certificate. And the remainder is split between those who have started some post-secondary but not completed and those who haven't. For adults, in order to meet our goal of 300,000 credentials by the year 2030, will require increasing our current rate of production by 100,000, or about 50% over what we're on track to produce. And on both of these measures, for young adults and for older adults, we need to do a much better job of distributing those opportunities equitably, irrespective of race, of geography, or of income. Why do these big goals matter? Partly they're because they're what experts have determined are required to meet our state's economic and workforce needs, but also because they have enormous implications for individuals. The benefits of post-secondary education come in many forms, but one of them, and one we can measure, is the economic benefit that post-secondary education confers upon individuals. Many of you have seen data like that, that's on this slide, relating a person's level of education to their average annual earnings. No surprise here, right? There's a strong relationship between higher levels of educational attainment and a person's likelihood to earn a family wage job. And that's a wage premium that's growing. Post-secondary education is one of the best tools we have to support an individual's ability to succeed in today's economy. But the benefits of post-secondary education today are inequitably distributed. That inequity appears in many dimensions, including race and ethnicity. As this slide shows, a white Oregonian is nearly twice as likely to be a master's or bachelor's degree holder than an Oregonian who is Black, Hispanic, Native American, or Hawaiian American, Native Hawaiian. We will not close Oregon's racial wealth gap without closing our post-secondary education gaps. We can also look at this in terms of income. Here again, post-secondary education is a proven path to upward mobility. If you grow up low income in Oregon, your likelihood of becoming a middle or upper middle income by your mid-30s more than doubles if you attend college. Moreover, low-income students have nearly identical earnings outcomes as middle or upper middle income students who attend the same school. Again, this is a powerful illustration of the positive impact that post-secondary education and training confers upon Oregonians. That's the good news. But here's the problem. An Oregonian who grows up in that low-income household is less than half as likely to attend college and earn a college degree than their classmates from a middle or upper income families. Look, we like to celebrate the stories of individual students who have grown up low income and succeeded in spite of the odds. I'm sure that includes a number of folks in this room, and we should celebrate those successes. But the data couldn't be more clear, couldn't be more stark. American ingenuity, American capital has created for this country and for this state a post-secondary education system that is a powerful engine for knowledge production and for economic mobility. But we have failed to distribute that system in ways that narrow racial and economic gaps. For someone who has dedicated the last 10 years of my career to higher education and who has been an extraordinary beneficiary of higher education, this is a hard thing to admit. But this incredible system is working mostly for those who are socioeconomically privileged. So, what's going on here? If you're like many people, you might start by pointing to the role that K-12 education plays in preparing people for college and training and career. And while our commission shares the urgent view that pre-K-12 education should be stronger and more equitable, we believe post-secondary education leaders and policymakers have just as much opportunity to rectify injustices that our systems perpetuate today. The barriers to post-secondary access begin with the high costs that we have created for it, a topic I'll have more to say about in a few minutes. But they also include the complex pre-college systems that we require students to navigate just to access it, including financial aid, applications, and admissions systems that are particularly challenging for low-income, first-generation, and other underrepresented students. Finally, our society is guilty of sending cultural signals that perpetuate the stereotype that post-secondary education is primarily for white 18 to 22-year-old students who live on campus, who go to football games and frat parties and hang out in the dorms. And while that isn't the reality of Oregon's post-secondary system broadly today, it's a stereotype that continues to dominate the landscape, signaling to too many Oregonians that this is not a system designed for them. But even supposing that a first-generation student of color overcomes these barriers to access, they encounter steep barriers completing their certificate or degree. These include the challenges of food and housing insecurity, of childcare and transportation that are rife among post-secondary students of all ages. They include the challenges of navigating complex academic pathways to certificate and degree, especially for students who earn credit at multiple institutions and attempt to transfer it, or who attempt to apply learning that they acquired through jobs, or through military service, or cultural traditions towards certificates or degrees. Barriers include class scheduling that may be too inflexible to meet their particular needs. And finally, some students, and particularly students of color, attend schools where they are unlikely to encounter teachers, or even many other students who easily relate to them. And in too many cases, they receive subtle or not so subtle messages that they don't belong. By tackling these and other barriers head-on, we will improve. We will increase the rate of certificate and degree-seeking students at community colleges who complete, which stands at about 50% today. We will increase the percentage of public university undergraduates who complete bachelor's degrees, well above the 2/3 who do today. And we will reverse the 10-year decline in enrollment at Oregon's public colleges and universities, including just a 15% drop over just the last 2 years. And we can restore the public confidence in the value of post-secondary education, especially given its growing importance for getting a good job. How do we do this? The HEC this year has adopted a strategic roadmap that describes broadly the changes that we need to see within our post-secondary education and training system. The roadmap emerged from 2 years of surveys, focus groups, interviews, and conversations with partners from around the state, and can be distilled into 5 main categories of action. We call for transformation and innovation in how we deliver post-secondary education, including innovative curriculum, pedagogy, and pathways that better meet the needs of today's students. We call for centering our higher education and workforce capacity, including state-funded capacity, more intentionally on current and future needs. And this is about using up-to-date demographic information and economic data, not just tradition and past practice, the way we've done it before, to more intentionally decide where we invest, in which programs we invest, and most importantly, the types of learners whom we need to serve. We call for ensuring that post-secondary learners can afford to meet their basic needs. For too long, policymakers have thought about affordability in post-secondary education primarily as a matter of tuition. And while that remains a sizable portion of the cost, Our commission increasingly hears from students who struggle with housing and food insecurity and the high price of textbooks. We must address those basic needs. Fourth, we call for supporting a continuum of pathways from education and training to career, recognizing that a bachelor's degree is not the only vehicle to high-quality careers. The apprenticeships, on-the-job training, some career schools, and other career-oriented training programs have a critical role to play in preparing Oregonians for life and career. And finally, we call for increasing investment to meet Oregon's post-secondary education goals. Of course, this is all very high level. And before I conclude, I want to talk about two specific opportunities that Oregon policymakers have to advance this ambitious agenda in 2022 and 2023. Later this morning, Governor Brown will discuss the work that she and a committee of her Racial Justice Council have led to develop a proposal for a sizable 2022 state investment in workforce training and development. I want to take a moment just to describe the once-in-a-generation opportunity that this proposal represents. A package of future-ready Oregon investments that is envisioned would transform the way that we create and deliver workforce development. This package centers the workforce system and its partners on the customer, meeting Oregonians where they're at, tailoring service delivery to the individual, and offering holistic solutions that generate economic mobility. The investments envisioned would immediately expand opportunities for individuals to access post-secondary education and training pathways. It would be targeted towards unemployed and underemployed Oregonians and Oregon's BIPOC, low-income and rural communities with a specific focus on training for careers in healthcare, manufacturing, and construction. Simultaneously, this package would make investments to strengthen and transform our workforce and education systems for the future. Through funding new or expanded partners in workforce development, including culturally specific and community organizations, it would connect low-income and diverse Oregonians with the support they need to access education and training for career, including access to housing, food, and other benefits. And it would strengthen that education pathway, creating a tighter link between the skills and knowledge that training programs impart and the needs that employers are hiring for. Finally, a future-ready package would support healthcare, manufacturing, and construction employers in a multi-year project to identify specific job skills that those fields require, as well as projected staffing needs in those industries during the decade to come. So this February, we envision working with the governor and the legislature on funding a package that would expand the capacity of our local workforce development boards to connect employers and job seekers, make investments in career pathway programs at Oregon community colleges, expand registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship program, expand youth re-engagement programs, and expand the capacity of colleges and universities to provide credit for prior learning. We envision a package that would also fund a new competitive grant program that would enable service providers to provide direct benefits to individuals seeking education and career training. We envision funding an industry consortia in the healthcare, construction, and manufacturing fields, and we envision establishing benefits navigators at our state's one-stop workforce centers and community-based organizations to ensure that job seekers have maximum access to the public benefits to which they're entitled. Finally, we envision an assessment, accountability, and continuous improvement system to inform our progress as we go. So Future Ready Oregon represents our first big opportunity. Our second opportunity is, in some ways, even more foundational. It's to do no less than put the public back in our public post-secondary education system. Even compared with national averages, Oregon funds its post-secondary education and training system poorly. You can see that history on this slide over the last 20 years, with the red being the national line and the green bars being Oregon. And while we've climbed from our nearly last in a nation status a decade ago, on a per-student basis, we're still almost 20% below the national average and ranked 35th among the states. As a result, Oregon students bear an increasing proportion of their total educational costs, much of it borrowed at relatively high interest rates, and especially if you're not the beneficiary of intergenerational wealth, with a prospect of a long and slow payback. While the state and federal government already provide grants to low-income students to help offset the cost of attending post-secondary education, the math just currently doesn't make enough sense. Even taking public grants into account, students from low-income families, those on the middle and right-hand pie charts of this slide, need to dedicate a much greater proportion of their annual income to attend college than students from families that earn more than $110,000 per year. If you're from a family that earns less than $30,000 per year, you would need to spend or borrow the equivalent of 79% of your annual income to attend an Oregon public university. Other states do better. At $575 per average per student, the state of Oregon's contribution to its need-based financial aid program is less than a third of what the state of Washington puts in, where in Washington, a student whose family earns less than the median family income qualifies for a full or partial tuition scholarship to attend any Washington college or university or apprenticeship program, public or private. By contrast, Oregon serves just a fraction of those students, those with the very lowest incomes, and we provide smaller awards. Even California musters nearly a threefold greater state commitment to financial aid on a per-student basis. These investments really do make a difference. Research shows that receiving grant aid, lowering the cost, increases a student's probability of completing their degree. State grant aid programs like the Oregon Opportunity Grant, our insufficiently funded state program, increase the probability of completion by 2.5 to 3 percentage points. Students who receive the Opportunity Grant, even as inadequate as it is, have higher graduation rates than other low-income students who didn't get the grant. Affordability matters. We are not putting post-secondary education within reach of enough low-income and underrepresented Oregonians. The Oregon legislature has the power to change that. So as we look at the next 2 years and the next 2 legislative sessions, we have a lot of hope. By adopting a Future Ready Oregon package in 2022, we can immediately expand opportunity for underrepresented Oregonians to access education and training programs, even as we're redesigning them for the future. And in 2022 or 2023, we can make a major new investment in the affordability of our post-secondary education and training systems, lowering the cost to the individual, reducing unsustainable and inequitable student debt, opening doors to opportunity, and contributing to an equitable and just recovery for Oregon. We look forward to partnering with the business community, with educators, and with other community leaders to advance this agenda in the months to come. Thank you to the Business Council, to the Business Plan, and to all of you.